This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, here on March 8th, 2022. Very windy out there on this winter day, but very happy. Received clarification on a job opportunity today, which will be nice. But you know what? I love coming on here and doing my podcast and talking to some interesting guests. And I have one down here today introduced to me by Scott the Icon Helmsrest of Attitude Era Live. Folks, I give you a fellow podcaster and radio personality, Angelo Thomas DeCipro, also known as MadDog.
MadDog DeCipio. How are you, Python?
Oh, gee, you've got a great voice. I like your voice. You've got a great radio voice.
That's 30 plus years in radio and television.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Well, that is usually my first question is give some of your background and how you got into it. 30 plus years. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I've always been fascinated by radio. I loved, of course, growing up, I watched tons of television like a lot of kids did. But I was fascinated by, and I'm going to give away my age now.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up listening to a guy named Wolfman Jack.
Oh, I know who he is.
Yeah, well, yeah. Everybody knows the Wolfman. And I grew up listening to guys like Wolfman Jack and Murray the K and the great radio personalities of my day. And in fact, when I grew up, I wanted to be Wolfman Jack.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I had the beard for it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I was fascinated by radio. The idea of creating pictures with your voice, to create, you know, a landscape for someone who can't see you and they can only hear you. And that's, to me, was the challenge, how to be creative, how to be entertaining, how to be an artist. All of these things, you know, cumulatively, you know, combined to create this persona, this on-air persona of the MadDog. And, you know, and I love radio. I love what I do. I love television. I've done a fair amount of quite a lot, in fact, a lot of television, and lent my voice for commercials, for movie trailers. You're probably listening to my voice somewhere now in the world. God help us, but it's true. But yeah, that's how I got involved in radio and podcasting. You know, I don't know. I'm sure it is the same way up where you are, but radio was kind of a dying thing anymore. Podcasting is the way we seem to be going now.
Yeah.
And so I found, and I'm sure you did too, Python, you found a way to lend your voice to a new medium, you know, and guys, you know, when I was a younger guy, it would have been almost impossible for someone with my background to get into radio. But I was fortunate. I had a pretty decent set of pipes, and I was able to, you know, to find a niche. And I called it a niche because it really was kind of a niche, you know, audience that I had. But I found a way to relate to people in my area, in my region, and that propelled me, you know, regionally and nationally, and now globally. You know, it's pretty hard to imagine, to think about this when I was younger, that people around the world would hear my voice, you know, and it's funny. Like, I heard a show. I've been doing my research on Python too, by the way. I heard a couple of shows that you did recently, and you have a very unique delivery.
Oh,
It's
thanks.
very, very laid back, very subdued, very cerebral, intellectual, I call it. Where I, on the other hand, am a big mouth, you know, and I just kind of, this is me. I'm out there. This is,
Mm-hmm.
when you get the MadDog, you get all of it, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and kind of the MadDog was actually kind of a play on my hero, Wolfman Jack. I would never dream of calling myself Wolfman Jack Jr. or any variation of Wolfman. But baby,
Mm-hmm.
we could do that. But yeah, the MadDog, he became kind of this persona, this alter ego of Angelo DeCipio.
What but of my interviews have you listened to, just out of curiosity?
I no, actually didn't see it. I listened to actually a few older ones.
Mm-hmm.
I think Nancy Allen was one.
Oh yeah.
And the other, I believe, was, I wish I would, the man's name, I forgot his name already, but he's a film actor. He's kind of a grizzly looking guy, heavy set with a beard. I listened to his interview. And I wish he does horror films. I wish the hell I knew his name.
Okay.
And in fact, you know what? I could probably tell you his name. It was recent too. I could tell you his name. I believe it might have. Damn. I'm wanting to. I wish the heck I knew what it was. I thought it was. Man, oh, I hate to do this on live radio, but I just completely lost my mind here for a moment, folks. Forgive me, folks, but that's what you get from the MadDog.
It took me 5 years to get Nancy Allen, and I finally was able to find a way to connect, because she is the executive director of We Spark Cancer, which
Right.
she was brought on board for when her friend, actress Wendy Jo Sperber, started that.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted Nancy Allen on for a long time because I love Dress to Kill.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep. And Carrie and stuff like that. So I was happy to get Nancy Allen on the show. That was
I
awesome.
love Dress to Kill, Python, but not for Nancy Allen. I love Angie Dickinson.
Oh yeah, I would love to get an Angie Dickinson on. I've interviewed Dolly Reed Martin from Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, and
sure,
she's trying to connect me with Angie.
Well, if that happens, brother, let me tell you something. If you get Angie Dickinson, you will have acquired a coup, and quite a coup, because she doesn't do interviews for anybody. And when she does, she wants to be paid heftily. But if you can get her for free, I'm right there right beside you. I want in on that one.
Oh, Jay, I don't like. I try to avoid paying for interviews. I think it's unnecessary.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's another thing. You and I, we both do a kind of a podcast where we have, some substantial guests on our show.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found that the generosity of some of these stars is absolutely bewildering, that they'll go above and beyond the call of duty to give an interview. I've never paid for an interview. I can proudly say that. I've never paid for an interview. And if you listen to my show, and I know you have, we have some pretty hefty players, both in the world of sport, wrestling, film, television, radio, politics. We've had a former President Donald Trump. We've had, oh my God, we've had name it from sports. They've been here. Baseball, football, wrestling. We've had any number of actors and actresses here. You mentioned Wendy Jo Sperber. I knew a dear friend of Wendy Jo. His name was Ron Paulilla. He played Arnold Horshack.
Oh, he was in Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the first victim.
Yes, he was. And Ronnie was a very, very dear friend of mine, rest in peace.
I'm
The late
good
Ron
friends.
Paulilla.
I'm good friends with Nancy McLaughlin, who is
sure.
in Jason Lives. And
Yeah.
I was talking to her last night, actually, and she sent this to me.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love
Nancy is a really good friend of mine, and she's always been encouraging to me, and I love her dearly. And yeah, Ron Paulilla. I know him better from Jason Lives and Welcome Back, Kotter.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course.
Yep.
Well, if you grew up in the Cotter generation, Vinnie Barbarino and Arnold Horshack were the two names of the day, for sure.
Yep.
That and Epstein's mother with the ever-present school note. But yeah, that's how I started in radio and TV. My career has been very interesting. I have had a vast and varied career in wrestling, television, radio. Oh my God! And of course the thing that I'm known for, and I'm sure you know about this, but I am a bona fide psychic and medium. And that's what I did that for many, many years, and I still do that. But I only have one client, and that client is the U.S. government.
Okay.
And that's who I work for from time to time. And that's as much as I can tell you about that.
I want to go back to Wolfman Jack because I got a story there. People have asked me where I got the name Python, and on the practical end, I love African wildlife, and especially snakes. Sure. But where I kind of got a little bit of the inspiration, I was watching American Graffiti, and there's that little subplot where Richard Dreyfuss is trying to find out who the woman in the white car is. Of course, Suzanne
the
Summers.
White T-Bird. Yeah.
Yeah, Suzanne Summers. He's trying
absolutely.
desperately. And he whines. You hear Wolfman Jack all night on various radios playing music and doing his dialogue. And Richard Dreyfuss pops by there the A hours and wants to speak to Wolfman.
Yeah, sure.
To get this out to her. And I love the fact that he gets waved in by somebody. Yeah. And we, the audience, know it's the Wolfman, but Dreyfuss's character doesn't.
No,
and he goes in there.
Have a clue.
And he goes in there and he sees this guy. It's Wolfman, but he doesn't know it. But he sees this guy who's sitting there at his equipment and whatnot. And he's offers him popsicles because something happened where all the popsicles are melting. And
the air conditioner broke in the studio.
Yep. And he is eating popsicles. And Richard Dreyfuss tells him his plight. And he says, well, I'll see what I can do, blah, blah, blah. And I love that when Dreyfuss leaves, he does a double take because he hears the Wolfman on the air and he turns, you just see the silhouette of him doing the Wolfman. And what I liked about that is when he was talking to Dreyfuss eating the popsicles, he was the real guy. But when he was on the air, he's the Wolfman. I got a little inspiration from that.
It's interesting you talk about it. We all go through that. People in the business will understand what I'm talking about. You've got the private individual. You've got Angelo Thomas DeCipio. You've got Greg, okay? But then when the camera comes on and the red light is beaming at you in the face, I become the MadDog. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I become MadDog. The rest of the week, I could never, first of all, I could never get away with in real life what I get away with as the MadDog. I would be in jail if I tried to do some of the stuff I got away with. Anyway, and if you understand what I'm talking about, then you certainly listen to my show and you know who I am. And thankfully, a lot of you do, and I'm very grateful and blessed to have a sizable audience. The other thing is, it's pretty hard. It's like Elvis Presley said once.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to live up to an image. It's hard to live up to what people expect you to be.
Mm-hmm.
If Bob Smith, and that was, by the way, Wolfman Jack's real name, Bob Smith. As mundane as that sounds, it's absolutely true. If Bob Smith tried to get away with the stuff that Wolfman Jack got away with, he couldn't do it. Bob had to have the Wolfman to fall on and to hide behind, just like you and I hide behind the characters of the Python and the MadDog.
Mm-hmm.
So we are duplicitous people. We play characters, and understand something. And I want people listening to this and watching this to understand that we are extensions of our personality, but certainly characterizations of our personality. Greg could never get away with being the Python 24/7 because he'd end up in some Nova Scotian jail somewhere. And so, and it's nice, though. It really is. It's nice that we can get away with playing a part. Mm-hmm. And that's what I really love. I love being the MadDog. I would have loved to have been Richard Dreyfuss, though, walking away and having that silhouette going, "How, baby?"
Mm-hmm.
I would have loved to been that guy. And now people who are watching this on video are saying that man has lost his mind. No, my mind has been gone a long time. It's not
another one of my influences, of course, is Howard Stern. Love Howard Stern.
I'll forgive you.
Oh, you don't like Howard Stern?
I will forgive you. I think Howard is a unique. He is certainly a unique personality.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what Howard did early on was certainly groundbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
In as far as his fight for free speech, and I absolutely am with him on that. But Howard took it. I think he took it a little too far on occasions, and pushed the envelope where it need not be pushed. Certainly he did that on his radio show, and he attempted to do that on his television show, which was subsequently pulled from the air. Now he does the same thing on YouTube where he can get away with it. But I think that Howard is an amazing talent, a great individual for free speech. Certainly a guy who speaks up when the less vocal don't have that opportunity. Howard's the guy that he's the go-to,
mm-hmm.
that people listen to. The problem is, as I said, Python, I think he just pushed it where it didn't need to go in some regards.
Give some examples.
Well, a lesbian bingo and butt bongo and
okay.
Having a brother and sister kiss each other. I mean,
I never heard those ones, but I gotta say he's he's a hell of an interviewer. I'll say that. Well, no, I absolutely gave him credit for that. He's a great mm-hmm. talent.
No question about it. But mm-hmm. he has resorted to things in his career, especially the early days of his career. When don't forget, he was called the shock jock.
Mm-hmm.
You had guys like Howard Stern and my personal favorite, Don Imus. who were, I don't know if you know who Don Imus
Oh,
was.
I know who he is. Yeah.
Yeah. Don Imus, rest his soul, was an amazing, he was the anti-Howard Stern. But in some ways, what they did was identical with regard to opening up a plethora of doors for free speech. And if you're on my show, and you will be on my show, you'll have the opportunity to say whatever you want, because I never have and never will censor anyone. Whether they agree with me or disagree with me, no one on my show is ever censored. There's not a 7-second delay button. There is never any there's never any subversion of vocabulary. You can say whatever's on your mind.
Okay.
And we allow people to do that because it's an important part of free expression. And so that's what we do. And I encourage that not only with my guests, but with my staff. And I have a couple people work for me. I have an amazing co-host named Amelia Chapman. Amelia is an amazing interviewer. She is a sponge. She is a woman that just absorbs everything, and if you've ever listened to the show, you know that. She kind of reminds me, you mentioned the Icon. She kind of reminds me of the Icon a little bit, because he's another guy that just kind of sucks everything up,
I was so surprised. I was working one night and I got this call from him and wanted me to come on his show. And I was like, why me? And it's funny because he's reached out to some of the people I've interviewed, and they've reached out to me asking if he was legit. And I said, absolutely, do his show, because I really enjoyed it. And I've interviewed people like yourself. He's sent my way, So, yeah, you mentioned wrestlers. What wrestlers have you had on the show?
Oh my God, who haven't we had? We've had, I'll go way old school to current. We've had guys like Davey Johann and Dominic DeNucci. We've had people like, oh Lord, Jack Victory.
Did you have Bruno San Martino?
Bruno, I knew in life. We did two shows for Bruno. We did the Bruno San Martino birthday edition, and then we did Sal Corrente, who was the Bruno's biographer. And Sal is a great guy. And in fact, if you want me, I could hook you up with him. He's a terrific fella. And wrote an amazing book called The Autobiography of Wrestling's Living Legend. It's a great book.
Okay.
And Bruno, I was fortunate enough to know Bruno in life. And we've had lunch together and dinner, and I met him years ago in Atlantic City. And of all places, in a casino. Well, he was being honored by ABC Sports for the greatest. It was called, Python, the Greatest Sports Legends Banquet. And among the people were Bruno San Martino, Muhammad Ali, Joe Garagiola, Joe DiMaggio, Wilt Chamberlain, the other, what was his name? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I can't remember everybody's name.
Yeah.
They were just like, just huge sports personalities, but they were all over the place. Mario Andretti was there. Just all kinds of, every sport was represented, from race car driving to boxing to wrestling, baseball, football, basketball. Joe Namath was there from football. It was just an amazing gathering of some incredible iconic personalities. And that's where I met Bruno, and he was just a fascinating guy.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny because, the one thing, Python, that he and I never talked about was wrestling.
I know he was disappointed where wrestling got to, and I
Yeah.
agree with him. I'm not too keen on what Vince McMahon has done.
You're not alone, my brother.
Yep.
We've interviewed, as I said, Dominic DeNucci, Davey Johannan. We've had people like Ron Starr. We've had Jack Victory, Eddie Mansfield, Scott Casey. We've had Tiger Conway Jr., Ric Flair. Who else? Let's see, Magnum TA, Lanny Poffo.
Did you have Randy Savage?
No, Randy had passed by that point.
But
I was fortunate enough to know Randy in life. In fact, my ex-wife, here's a story for you.
Mm-hmm.
My ex-wife and I went to a show in Philadelphia, and she made eyeglasses for a living. Okay? She made eyewear. She made a pair of glasses for Randy and for Jesse the Body Ventura.
Oh, I love Jesse.
And they wore them to the ring. They wore those glasses to the ring, and I have my bragging rights, Python, is that I have the video of that show because it was televised. It was a TV, taping in Philadelphia. And I have my bragging rights are Randy Savage and Jesse the Body are wearing the glasses that my ex-wife made for them. But that was a one hell of a night. That was a great night.
Do you know Jesse?
Oh, God, Jesse's a great guy. I spoke to Jesse for an hour. Talked about politics for an hour.
I love Jesse. Yeah.
He's a great guy. If you ever have a chance to get him. And if you can't get him, let me know, and I'll get him for you.
I would love to have Jesse on the show. I would treat him well, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, he loves to do podcasts, and he doesn't charge anybody either.
Wow. There's other wrestlers, too. Like, one of the saddest times for me, the closest I came to crying about a celebrity passing was Roddy Piper.
Oh, my God, yes. The hot rod, sure.
I've had his son Colt on the show and his daughter Ariel on the show. In fact, I'm still in touch with Ariel.
I would love to have either Ariel or Colt, and I have reached out to Colt about a year ago. And I don't know if he got busy or whatever, or whoever handles his bookings, but yeah, I would love to have either of them on the show. Because that's an interview I want to get into, because I know some things about Roddy Piper she probably doesn't know. And I'd like to get into that interview. I'd love to speak to her. But yeah, Roddy Piper was one of those. In fact, we lost in 1 week. We lost Ivan Koloff, Dusty Rhodes, and Roddy Piper within an 8-day period.
Wow, yeah.
Think about that. Think about how awesome those three names were. They generated huge money, huge ticket sales. They generated huge emotion. And that's what wrestling is. It's emotion. And you've had guys like Ivan Koloff, the guy that beat Bruno, and you could hear a pin drop in Madison Square Garden. And you've had Dusty Rhodes, the man who unseated the legendary Harley race. And then you've had, of course, the incomparable Roddy Piper. How do you even put a label on Hot Rod? He was the guy you loved to love and the guy you loved to hate.
Loved him, yep. They can't get heat that way anymore.
Nobody does heat because they're afraid to get heat. I had this conversation. We did a whole show. In fact, we're going to do another one with Davey Johannan. We're going to do a show called What Happened to Heat? Where did it go? Why is everybody so gun shy to be controversial? It's a show.
Sometimes it's bad heat. I'm going to tell you,
Give
One
me an
guy,
example of
one
bad heat.
one guy I don't like
Mm-hmm.
for the longest time was Shawn Michaels. When the
Completely
Montreal
understandable. Yeah.
when the Montreal screw job happened,
Yeah.
he took the Canadian flag, rubbed it on his crotch, blew his nose on it,
Yeah.
spit on it, stomped on it. And I like, if Bret Hart had done that to the American flag, they would have been calling for his head.
The country would have been in uproar.
I think
It
what
would have
Shawn
made-
Michaels did there was not called for.
I absolutely agree with you. There's no reason to desecrate someone's heritage or to desecrate their flag. It is, flags are symbolic. They're supposed to be considered sacred. That's why we get so angered and so hostile when someone burns the American flag.
Well, I even heard when the Iron Sheik put the American flag on the floor and spit. I was told he never spit on the flag.
No, he never did.
Nope. He played a character, but the thing is, the Iron Sheik knew what he was doing. What Shawn did was uncalled for.
What Shawn did was deliberate, it was malicious, and it was an extension, quite frankly, Python, it was an extension of his personal dislike and hatred. Let's just call it what it is. He and Bret, for the longest time, legit hated each other. And not even didn't like each other, but they just hated each other for shoot.
Yep.
You know? And that's a shoot.
And I don't even like how Triple H got where he was. And I think you know where I'm going there.
Yeah, I do get where you're going, but I have to tell you, and far be it from me to defend Hunter, but I have to say this. Paul Levesque, the person, played the character of Hunter Hearst Helmsley. You know, for those of you who don't know, Triple H is Hunter Hearst Helmsley. By the way, if you're too young to know where those three names come from, it was the Hunter brothers. They were gold investors. The Hearst family, which was Randolph Hearst, founder of the largest newspaper publication in the world, and Helmsley, the Helmsley hotel chain. Leona Helmsley was called the bitch of Wall Street. Okay, she was just a bad person, very money driven. But Hunter Hearst Helmsley played that character well. But Paul Levesque played his character even better. What he did that was admirable is he was able to separate. Talk about what we spoke earlier. He was able to separate Paul Levesque from Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Triple H. He was able to play his outside role significantly well to where he jockeyed himself for position within the company, not as a wrestler, but as an administrator. And he's a very, very good businessman. And he is incredibly bright. He's very articulate, very smart, and he has a vision for where he wants WWE to go. Now, if he is allowed to do that, the WWE will once again become the company it was known for, which is professional wrestling.
Yeah, it needs that.
If he is not permitted to do that, and 76-year-old Vince McMahon continues to make an ass of himself, then the company is going to remain what it is, which is a shit show.
Yep.
And let's just call it what it is, okay? It's not wrestling. It's not entertainment. I don't know what you want to call it. You can call it what you want, but it's not sport or entertainment. I can tell you that.
I think the only two individuals I think I can really compliment right there now, AJ Styles is great. I love Charlotte Flair.
Really?
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that, Python, because Charlotte's getting a lot of pushback lately for her attitude. But I think that she's playing her character well. She's the one that you want to hate. Her father made a career out of it.
Yep.
Look, the Nature Boy. You
Well,
know?
she's about to face Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania
Yeah.
38, and it reminds me of Bret Hart versus Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13.
Yeah.
The reason Steve Austin looked as good as he did in that match is because he was wrestling Bret Hart. And I think
Absolutely.
Ronda Rousey is going to have a good match because she's in there with Charlotte.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
you're only as good as the people you work with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, it's interesting for you to bring up the Bret Austin match.
Mm-hmm.
That was and is the single match, the turning point for pro wrestling. And I'll tell you what happened in that match for people that are too young to know. Steve Austin went into that match as the bona fide heel.
Mm-hmm.
Bret Hart went in as everyone's perennial babyface.
Mm-hmm.
By the time the match was over, they were cheering Austin and booing poor Bret.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What happened during that match that made that result as such? Here's what happened. Bret allowed Austin to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
When he became vulnerable, the fans picked up on it. Very much like, again, going back, showing my age, there was a guy way back when named Bruiser Brody.
Oh, yes, I know who he is.
Okay. Bruiser Brody, his widow, Barbara Goodish, is a very, very dear, sweet friend of mine. I know Barbara a long time now. She's been on my show a half a dozen times. And by the way, Barbara, thank you for the book and the videos. Good stuff.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to be sure to pass them along to Python at some point. Very shortly.
Yeah, I would love to do a tribute on Bruiser. Yeah.
Oh, man, I'll tell you what. Barbara's a great interview. I want to hook you up with her.
Okay.
Absolutely, for sure. And that's what happened, Python. The same thing that happened with Bruiser Brody. He became iconic when he showed his humanity. And when Bret Hart allowed, through that match, allowed Austin to be vulnerable, and people felt bad that Austin was getting his butt handed to him, that's when he became the fan favorite.
Mm-hmm.
It's a scary and amazing thing to happen. To watch it happen is just awe-inspiring. It really, really is. Can you tell I get excited when I talk about wrestling?
Totally the opposite of how the Click treated people.
Oh, my God, please. Oh,
yep.
Horribly, horribly.
Yeah.
Well, you got to remember something. And again, for those of the listeners who don't understand what happened with the Click, there were a bunch of guys given too much money, too much power, unrestricted power, by the way, unchecked power, and they had a blank check to do whatever they wanted. That's a good and bad thing. It's a good thing if the person is responsible with that power, but you're talking about Scott Hall and Kevin Nash and Shawn Michaels and Sean Waltman, X-Pac. 4 guys that are not known for their discipline at all.
Sean got disciplined when he messed with that Marine, though.
Oh, yeah, they tore him up. Absolutely, they sure did. Yep, that Marine beat the snot out of him.
I like how some of the wrestlers say there was more than one Marine. I think it was only one.
It was one.
Yep.
Sean told the story that it was 3 guys that beat him up. Sorry, Sean, but you're lying. It was one guy. It was one guy your size, and he beat the snot out of you.
Yep.
And didn't use a super kick to do it. He used the left and the right, and Sean hit the floor.
Yep. That's the difference between
that fight was.
That's the difference between Shawn Michaels and Haku,
Oh God, yeah.
Yep. Other guys
is a tough guy. I mean, legit, he's a tough guy.
Speaking of tough guys, did you know Harley Race?
I actually did. I want to tell you some funny story about that.
He slammed Andre the Giant before Hogan did, and Vince would never acknowledge that.
And I'm going to tell you the amazing thing about that.
Mm-hmm.
Harley Race was a lifetime smoker. He smoked 2 packs a day for almost 60 years. All right. Long time. Harley Race and I met at the NWA Cauliflower Alley Club convention in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, 1999. I was outside having a cigarette in between a break in the show. I went outside to have a cigarette. I get a tap on the shoulder. I turn around. I'm not even kidding. You can't make this up. I get a tap on the shoulder. I turn around, and I'm staring face to face like this with Harley Race. Okay? 9-time world champion, all right? Who comes up right behind him? Good old JR, Jim Ross.
Oh, okay.
And Jim Ross was a smoker at the time. Jim doesn't smoke anymore. So I give Harley Race a light. He was he had cigarettes, but no lighter. Okay? JR comes out. He takes his cigarette out and starts to light it. Right? Flicked his too. So I got Jim Ross. I lit a cigarette, and Harley Race lit a cigarette. We were out there and we spoke for so long. Both of these guys missed the opening of the second half of the show. And I kept them out there. It was my fault. But that was an amazing opportunity to talk to Harley and talk to JR and just hang out with these legendary guys that you grew up. I was a little kid when Harley was, in his prime, you know? And to see, to see them in person and to interact with them again, talking about a guy who knew his role and knew his character, Harley Race, the hard living, tough fighting, the guy from Kansas City, the every man's man. He was that way in real life, but he was also a husband and a father and an uncle and a grandfather.
I heard good things about him.
He was an amazing guy, one hell of a guy, really nice, and a nice man, really nice man. As was the legendary Baron von Raschke, Jim Raschke. I got to hang out with Jim Raschke, and Python. I have to tell you this, and maybe it's just because of the age that I am. But I was at this show, and the whole time I spoke to Baron von, excuse me, get my teeth going here, Baron von Raschke, no one came up to him the entire time. Now, I don't know if they were afraid to, or I don't know if they didn't know who he was.
He was part of the last, the Shea shows. Yep.
Yeah.
Showdown in Shea shows.
But what an amazing guy. Great guy. Jim Raschke, hell of a guy. I'm over here tying up your conversation. Ask me questions. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I'm gonna bring up some other wrestler name.
Sure.
Terry Funk.
Terry is a great guy. I actually spoke to Terry about 2 weeks ago.
I love Terry. Yeah, I know he's going through a rough time right now.
He is, but you know what keeps him going? When people pick up the phone and call him.
Would he do this show?
Well, he won't do any shows, but he will talk to you on the phone. That he will do. And I know him, and I can't get him to do a show. That's
okay.
Yeah, and I'll tell you when we get off the air. I'll tell you why. There's a reason for it.
That's okay. I don't hold it against him. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and when you find out, you'll understand completely. But he's a sweet guy. Going through a rough time. He lost his wife.
Yep.
And that hit him hard because that woman was his everything.
Oh yeah.
Vicky was his everything. And I understand a little bit about that. I just lost my father, and I see how it's affected my mom. So, and it's been rough, but you know what? It's like anything else. If you have a support mechanism and you've got people around who love you and care, it makes things a little bit better. In fact, it makes things a lot better. But yeah, but Terry is a sweet, sweet guy. He's going through a rough patch, but I think he's going to be okay, Python.
Yeah. Well, I'm hardcore wrestling. It's a give or take. Terry Funk did it the best because he made you believe it.
He invented it.
Yep. Oh yeah.
He did. He invented it.
Terry was phenomenal.
There's no hardcore without Terry Funk.
Nope.
And that's why even the young guys know who Terry Funk is.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy who created their genre.
Mm-hmm.
He created that hardcore style. And he did it in Japan, of all places.
Yep. Oh, I've watched some of those. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And you can do it in Japan and get away with it because theirs is a much more realistic, a much more hands-on physical wrestling than ours. Ours, and I think it's no secret that you might also agree that ours is more entertainment, more showbiz than fight. In Japan, it's a lot more fight than showbiz. For sure.
Jake the Snake Roberts, you met him?
I have met Jake.
Love Jake.
I have had his brother and sister on the show.
Mm-hmm.
I have not had him. It's funny. I was going to have him on the show, but then the bastard go ahead and got signed by AEW. Now I can't touch him. He got signed by AEW, and I can't touch him now.
I'm a big Jake the Snake fan. How about Ricky the Dragon Steamboat?
Ricky, I had the chance to speak to a few times. He's never been on my show, but I've actually had the chance to talk to him a bit. A nice guy. Again, a guy that doesn't get enough credit for his intellect, for his wrestling brain. He's a really brilliant guy.
I think Hulk Hogan was a little intimidated of Steamboat's success.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan, and I'm going to tell you, this is no tale out of school, folks. Hulk Hogan is intimidated by anybody's level of success, especially now because his spotlight is starting to dim. It's diminishing. And there's a generation of young, really bright, great stars coming up that are really good at what they do. You know, and the more people focus on them, the less they focus on him.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there are three things that nobody wants to see happen. They never want to see somebody lose their money, lose their life, or lose their spotlight. But in wrestling, it happens every day.
Mm-hmm.
Hulk still has his money. Hulk still has his relative health. God bless him. But his spotlight days are quickly fading. You know, soon it's going to be a generation of people that are coming up going, Hulk who? You know, they literally won't know who he is. You know, unless he has had such a cemented career that you can't help but know who he is. But again, Python, Hulk Hogan did a lot of damage to his own career at his own hands. It did not help him. We have to go there. It didn't help him having that sex tape released.
No.
That didn't help. The Gawker trial did not help him. It helped him financially, but it also placed him as a snitch. And nobody likes a stooge in wrestling. No. Nobody likes a snitch, a rat.
Jesse didn't like him a whole lot.
No, because Hogan was a rat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you'll find that wrestlers are a lot like the mafia. They're a tight-knit group of guys, and nobody likes a rat in wrestling. You know, it's their version of Cosa Nostra.
Did you know Kurt Hennig?
I never knew Kurt. I did have the pleasure of seeing him wrestle many times in person, and he was an amazing athlete. But I never got one guy I never got to meet.
Okay, how about George the Animal Steel?
Ah, the best, the best. That that's a man who knew his character. George the Animal Steel, Jim Myers.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Myers, the man behind George the Animal Steel, rest in peace,
Mm-hmm.
was an incredibly articulate school teacher. People don't believe that. It absolutely is true. He was a school teacher. And not just a school teacher, but check this one out. He was an English school teacher, English major. And he also coached the football team. He was an incredible mind, a football mind, an athlete. He had a great skill for coaching and teaching. And but when he became the animal, Jim Myers embodied George the Animal Steel. He became George.
You know what's funny? You say that because between him and Kamala, I I bought into that as a young man growing up. I could not believe years later how articulate they were, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
it's credible. You mentioned Kamala. I have
Mhm.
a personal story about Kamala. He
Yeah.
came into my late father had a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Kamala came into our restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And he came in with, you're going to love this one. He came in with Pretty Boy Larry Sharp, Stan the Lariat Hansen,
Oh, love Stan.
and the guy who would become Papa Shango,
Yep.
the Godfather,
Yep.
Charles Wright.
Mm-hmm.
But when he walked in with Kamala, Charles Harris, I got to tell you what a sweet, sweet guy he was.
That's what I
And
hear.
he was huge. Let me tell you, brother, he was huge.
Mm-hmm.
But Charles Harris was a great guy who knew how to play Kamala.
You mean James Harris?
I'm sorry, James Harris.
James Harris. Yeah. Charles is Papa Shango.
Yes, Charles Wright. Oh, that's right. I said Charles twice. Sorry about that.
Yeah. What about the Honky Tonk Man? Did you meet him?
I have.
Yeah.
Sweet guy.
Mm-hmm.
Very smart guy. And tougher. He's a lot tougher than a lot of people think he is.
Mm-hmm.
Because I saw him in a straight up shoot, and he can handle himself. He can fight.
That's a gimmick a lot of people didn't think was going to take off, but when he went heel, that was when it took off.
Well, what a lot of people didn't expect was they thought it was a comedy gimmick. Because let's be honest about it, it's not the first time that somebody tried to pull off an Elvis Presley, gimmick in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most famous cases, a man that's been on my show 5 times already, Superstar Bill Dundee.
Okay, yep. No, I'm familiar with him. Yep.
Yeah, Superstar Bill Dundee was the first guy to wear an Elvis Presley jumpsuit to the ring. And that's when Elvis was still alive. Way back when. Back in like 74, 75 in Memphis, Tennessee. Elvis's hometown of all places. But then when the Honky Tonk Man, who, by the way, Honky Tonk Man is legitimately Jerry Lawler's first cousin.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't know that.
I knew that, yep.
Wayne Farris. His name is Wayne Farris.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I got to come up with something that nobody's ever seen before. As certainly up here, no one ever saw an Elvis look-alike in a wrestling business. And when he put that jumpsuit on, everybody thought it was a joke. They thought it was, what is this? Who's this clown trying to be this Elvis wannabe? What is this all about? But as soon as he started to wrestle, people took him very serious because he was good. And he is good. He's really good. Yeah, but the whole Elvis look-alike wrestling angle, and then to turn the heel character on it. Now you've got an Elvis bad guy gimmick. That's interesting in itself. Because Elvis was beloved around the world. But it's interesting, but no, you're right. You're right, Python. They said it'll never happen. It'll never go over, but it went through the roof, brother.
Mm-hmm. I have a more obscure name for you. Outback Jack.
Outback Jack, a.k.a. Jimmy Jack Funk.
No, Outback Jack is Peter's Stillsbury, Outback Jack.
Yeah. And as I said, I revert to what I said before. Jimmy Jack Funk. He actually played that character for 3 matches.
Oh.
And then, yep. And then they gave the character to a guy named Jesse Barr, who became Jimmy Jack Funk.
Okay.
Yeah. Jesse Barr. But Outback Jack, there's a lot of people don't remember that name.
You know how I remember? Because I got into wrestling just before WrestleMania 3, and they had the stickers in the hostess chip bags.
Yeah.
And Outback Jack was on one of the stickers.
Gotcha.
And it's sad he was never in any of the pay-per-views, you know? I've got the LGN figure over there, you know? And,
yeah.
But I hated how the Bulldogs treated him. I heard that story.
Yeah, absolutely. The Bulldogs were bullies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy Smith were bullies.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of that had to do with the amount of steroids they were eating, because they were consuming massive amounts of steroids. Massive amounts.
The Rougeos
and I really
had the
believe,
answer.
Yeah, well, I really believe, and I honestly do believe this. I believe that steroids, not only do they affect you physically, I believe they affect you mentally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it really played head games with both of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
You look at both of those guys. Look at Randy Savage. Look at, by the way, what do they have in common? They're all dead. Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero. They all of these guys were eating massive amounts of roids and doing drugs on top of it. You can't live a healthy life if you live a life at all eating that kind of stuff. It will kill you.
Not very many wrestlers make it to over 80 years old. Bruno did it. Killer Kowalski did it. Those were the guys that weren't into all that.
Think about what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys, Bruno, Killer Kowalski, Red Bastain, who I knew, rest in peace. Guys like Ivan Koloff, Killer Khan, Crusher Khrushchev, guys like Pedro Morales, Superstar Billy Graham.
Mm-hmm.
What did they all have in common? They wrestled in a day before there were springs in the mat. They wrestled on boxing rings. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
There were no springs on those mats. They were solid steel. Nothing but padding and canvas. That was it. They also wrestled in a day when drugs were not prevalent. There were supplements, yes. There were vitamins, yes. But only a few people back in the day knew what steroids were. Mm-hmm. Look at Superstar Billy Graham. He was a living example, living personification of a guy who knew what steroids were, because he came